The Savvy Diva Show, all about the money, building wealth, talking finances, business credit, time to invest in yourself. Hey, the Savvy Diva Show, take it to the next level, time to be great, giving you plenty advice. This is mogul talk, even real estate. Let's go. Letitia, here to help get it done. Live the lifestyle that you want. If you ready for it, let's go. This is the Savvy Diva Show. Woo!
About me, let's talk about the cold hard facts. So here's where we are in the United States. 54% of Black Americans report that they either have no credit or poor to fair credit, which is typically going to be considered a score below a 650. I'm sorry, 640. Over half of Black Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Basically, the cash flow is an issue, right? This can affect your payment history and the rate at which you can obtain credit. And finally, we have the tendency to have higher rates of student loan debt than the average person. And only about half of us own a credit card, meaning that you don't have that cushion if you ever needed to fall back on that if hard times came. So again, having a credit card also helps you with building your credit when you use it correctly. So let's talk about your money mindset. All right, so let's talk about this, your money mindset and how that impacts your relationship with money, okay? So what emotions do you feel when you think about money? Stress, anxiety, fear, or are you confident about your money situation? Actually, let me see if, there we go. I can open it up. I'll just have to minimize it so it's not in the way as I present.
Letitia, I'll read some of them. One of them is tension. I was trying to say comfortable, stress, happy, motivated.
Motivated. I like that word because that can mean a lot of things. It can mean that you're motivated to continue on your path with your money, or you might be in a situation where you're kind of just trying to learn more and you're motivated to do something different. Confused. Okay, well, we'll hopefully be able to help a little bit with that confusion. Focused. I love that. All right. So thank y'all for answering that question, because that definitely is something I want you to think about, because again, it impacts your relationship with money. I know that's a weird term, but we all have preconceived notions about money, right? So we'll talk about that in just a moment. So here are some reasons why people struggle with money. Excessive debt. That can lead to stress, anxiety, fear, right? Living above your means. A lot of us don't really know how to manage a budget and stick to it. And I'll just be honest, I'm here in Atlanta. I see a lot of people that love to floss. It's flossing season, it's getting hot, and people love to be out and about and you know, look good and those kinds of things. But living above your means can definitely create some challenges with money. Keeping up with the Joneses, if you will. And then having a negative money mindset. So what does that mean? Maybe you've heard some of these terms before. So money is the root of all evil. Making money is hard. Money can't buy happiness. All of those things sound very negative, right? It's hard, it's evil, can't buy happiness. But if you change your outlook about money, change your mindset about money, that can allow you to take the control back, right? So when you have control of your finances, there are things that you can do to alleviate some of those emotions and so some of those negative mindsets about money. So when you make that shift in your money mindset, when you have a positive money mindset, you're going to look for opportunities instead of seeing roadblocks. We all know every last one of us deals with challenges. It just comes with the territory, right? That's life. But the way that you see that situation definitely will impact the way that you respond to it. Recognize that every financial situation is fixable. There are ways to overcome those situations. See the value of asking for help instead of just struggling alone, right? And then accepting that even small steps, it can help in terms of your progress, even if it's slow. I'm always a big proponent of progress over perfection. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you're making forward progress, then you'll always be improving your situation. All right, so that mindset was a critical piece. So I wanted to make sure we spent some time and just kind of laid that foundation before we really dig into budgeting, which is where we're shifting to now. So what I have on the screen here is an example of a monthly budget. And don't worry about trying to jot things down and sketch this out. I'm actually going to give you access to my budget template. So I have a financial planner that you will have access to that will have this example in it. And it will also have a blank page so you can create your own budget. And it'll have a page for some notes if you wanted to just write down things as you're trying to develop your monthly budget. If you just need some workspace, you'll have a notes page in there too. So you will have access to this for free, and I'll tell you how to get to it after the presentation. But the first step as you're creating your monthly budget is to determine where your money's coming from. So that top line is your income. So if you have income from one or more jobs, if you have more than one, if you have a side hustle, if you get any income from child support, alimony, any source, I want you to capture all of your income sources, right? That's going to go in that top line. Next, you want to make a list of all of your monthly expenses. And I put some example expenses here. This is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure you'll have some things that either don't apply to you or you have some things to add to this list. But typically people are going to have a rent or mortgage expense. You'll have an insurance expense, whether that's car insurance, life insurance, any other insurance expenses. Your phone and internet, utilities, gas. So a lot of us may not be spending as much on gas right now because we're not having to drive as much if you're working from home or things have changed with the pandemic. So, but you want to have an estimate of your gas expense, your groceries, childcare, dining out, clothing, subscriptions. People forget about that. If you got Netflix or any of those other things, capture those as well. And then I've got a line for a play fund. So if you, typically like to have some type of entertainment, you need to budget for that. Anything that you can think of needs to be on this list. So if you are not watching your expenses, you'll have some things that are not within your budget you're spending money on. So I would encourage you to maybe for about 30 days, just keep a log of everything that you spend money on, whether it's swiping your debit card or cash, whatever those expenses are, write them down. And then you'll be able to compile that and put them into categories to put in your budget. Okay. Determine your savings goal. So down towards the bottom, you see savings. You need to budget for that. And on average, you need to have about 6 months of savings. In case some unfortunate thing happens, you have a reserve set aside to be able to carry you through those hard times. Okay, so saving is something you need to do on a regular basis. So the last step is, again, keeping track of your actual expenses and income and savings each month. So you've got a column for your budgeted expenses, your actual expenses, and then the last step is to calculate the difference. So in this example to the right, you see that the income was estimated at $5,000. Maybe they got some overtime or a bonus or something that resulted in a surplus of $700 that month. Okay. And then you've got these expenses. So mortgage pretty much is going to be the same every month. Insurance, same thing. These are fixed expenses. Phone and internet may vary a little bit based upon how many days are in the billing cycle. So in this case, it ended up being about $5 more than what they budgeted. Utilities, about $40 less. And then on down the list. So you want to add up all of the differences here, right? Or if you took the total amount budgeted or minus the total amount actual, it's going to give you this number, right? So they actually ended up with $110 more than what they had budgeted. So their actual expenses were $110 less than what they had budgeted for, which means they had a surplus. It was a good month. They spent less than what they had budgeted for. And they had an extra $700 in savings from the additional income that month.
There's a question
in the chat, just real quick. I think she's asking, you talked about having 6 months of savings. And the question is that 6 months based upon your income or some other figure?
I would say 6 months of your expenses. So if you add up your budget and it's $3,255 times 6 is what you want to have in savings.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? All right.
So I have a question. Based on this pandemic that we were in, I was under the impression that the 6 months income was no longer a good figure to go by. They were saying that you might need to have an amount of 8 months to a year saved up. Has that something that you come about to learn, or are we still sticking with the 6 months?
I think that is under a normal situation. 6 months is what has always been kind of ingrained in our heads. But you're right. We're kind of in an abnormal situation right now. So I would probably say that it's fair to have much more savings set aside because you don't know what it's going to be like a year from now. But I think that under a normal situation, 6 months is good, but right now we're kind of in this abnormal year, if you will. So I would definitely agree with that. Makes sense to me. Any other questions?
I think we're good.
All right. So what is the key to managing your budget? It's discipline. You definitely want to make sure that whatever you're doing, that you're sticking to that budget as much as you possibly can. Are there going to be unforeseen expenses? Absolutely. But it is going to require you to stick to your plan as much as you can. So I like to think about things that are going to, let's just say I've got a girlfriend's trip that one of my friends is planning. That's not in my budget. If I don't have savings set aside for a trip fund, or that means that I've got to pull from my savings, that probably is not the right thing for me to do at this time, right? So the discipline comes into play in order for you to continue to stick to your plan and manage your budget. So think about it like this. Cash flow is income minus expenses. If you want to increase your cash flow, there are two ways you can do it. Increase your income or decrease your expenses. So if you want to find money in your budget for that girl's trip, that's how you do that. So if you have a side hustle, or if you haven't set up a side hustle or business on the side that generates additional income for you, then that's a way to do that. I'm not a huge proponent of multiple jobs because I think multiple jobs are for multiple people. But for some people, having, a part-time job is what they need to be able to kind of give themselves a little buffer with their income. I just prefer to do it through entrepreneurship. That's my path, but there's no right or wrong answer to that. But there are ways that you can increase your income.
So Letitia, this is what you do every day. What is something for someone who is not in the field that you're in or have the discipline to get it that way, to become disciplined? Because that can be a challenge, especially when you're even now with the COVID, or you could be a single parent, it could be many other things, but just to try and give some suggestions on how to at least start somewhere to become more disciplined.
So the discipline is, it's a tough subject. And the reason why is because, sometimes people don't really prioritize well. So you're going to put your effort and your focus towards what's important to you. So if you make it a priority, so I get a lot of people, because I do help with credit, I get a lot of people that come to me saying they want to become a homeowner. And my question is, well, and they see, oh, interest rates are low, it's a good time to buy a house. Okay, great. Well, let's talk about how you can bridge that gap between where you are now and home ownership. And once we start having that conversation, and really, they're not really thinking about all of the costs that come along with home ownership. So it's not just your mortgage expense. You've got to plan for the inevitable, which will happen. Something will break in your house and you can't call your landlord to fix it. You have to have the money set aside to do that. So I try to help them understand what it's going to take to really be committed to get to that path of home ownership. It may require them to now relook at their budget because they don't have those types of funds set aside for the what ifs. So my question is, okay, well, if home ownership is a priority, let's talk about your budget. Where are you spending your money? And I can pretty much count 5 ways on most conversations that they're spending money that they probably could redirect towards saving or to find ways to reduce their expenses so that they can be better prepared for home ownership. So are you spending money eating out when you can cook, right? Are you paying $300 a month for cable when maybe you can probably get by with a Fire Stick and Hulu or Netflix? Okay. So those are things that you have to ask. Well, is it more important for you to be entertained or have a home? So at the end of the day, that's the question that you want to ask for each one of those things that you're spending money on. Is it a need or is it a want? And is it a priority for me? And if it's a priority, then you should find a way to budget that. Hopefully that answered your question.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
There are a couple of comments in the chat. One person is just saying, hey, they have a direct deposit to a savings account that they don't have the app for on their phone, so they can't touch it.
That's the way to do it. Or I have 4 accounts and I have direct deposits to each one. Mm-hmm. And 2 of them, I don't have a debit card for those accounts. That means that it's not easily accessible. Can I go to a branch? Yeah, but guess what? These are accounts that I set up in Alabama. There's no local branch. So I made it very difficult for me to access those funds. And that kind of keeps you from being tempted to access them.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion because I have a savings with the credit union, but I also have my debit card. I need to just freeze it or tear it up because I carry it too. And that defeats the whole purpose of me saving money over there.
Yes. Yes. So if you find yourself tempted to access those savings, then that debit card is probably one of those things that's going to make it a little bit harder for you to continue to save.